The disciples get into the boat and must cross the lake during the night. The wind is against them. They are put to the test by the difficulty of rowing against the wind. In the middle of the night, Jesus appears. He approaches the boat, walking on the sea. The disciples are terrified and think they are seeing a ghost. Then Jesus gets into the boat. The sea becomes calm, and they are left perplexed. The gospel tells us that this happened because they had not yet understood the meaning of the multiplication of the loaves, and because their hearts were hardened. I draw attention to these main points of the gospel, because from them we can draw a very important conclusion for our life. First, God gives us His graces. He multiplies the loaves. He gives us the strength, the energy, and the nourishment necessary to cross this life. But God does not give us an easy path. The disciples must row against the wind. In the original Greek text, this expression is very significant. Portuguese says that they were tired, but the meaning is deeper. The word used by St. Mark is basanizomenos, which comes from basanos and means touchstone. The touchstone was used to test the purity of metals. The merchant would scratch the metal on the stone to see whether it was true or false. In other words, the disciples were suffering because they were being tested. That painful crossing was the test of the purity of their hearts, of their love for Jesus. The same thing happens in our lives. We too are tested. We too pass through the touchstone. We are like metals before God. But what kind of metal are we? What is my love for Christ like? We must row. We must sweat. We must suffer in this life, not because God is a torturer, not because He enjoys seeing us suffer, but because the virtue of the righteous is revealed only in trial. It is in suffering that true faith appears. Unfortunately, at that moment, the disciples did not pass the test. They did not yet have sufficient faith. The gospel says something even stronger. Their hearts were hardened. Interestingly, St. Mark does not use the usual Greek word for hardened heart, which would be sclerocardia. He uses another word, peperomenon. This word means a heart hard like a callus, insensitive, like skin that has lost its sensitivity. In other words, they had a heart insensitive to the truth about who Jesus really was. And then the great question arises for us. And what about us? In the midst of daily trials, rowing against the wind on the sea of life, do we truly love Jesus enough? Are we precious metals, capable of recognizing the Lord when He comes? Or do we have such a hardened, calloused heart that we are frightened by Jesus and think He is a ghost? Here lies our decision. We must recognize the presence of God when He multiplies the loaves and performs miracles in our favor. But we must also recognize Him when He allows trials, when we are subjected to the touchstone of life, so that our virtues may be revealed. God bless you.